Welcome back, students. So in today's session we are going to see some of the important questions, or these are the solutions for your S-Chan. Okay, the S-Chan reference book which you are using. So these are the solutions for that particular questions which are contained in your S-Chan. Okay, so let's talk about this and start our class today. So the first question here, that is present in your book, that is, what are the conditions for something to be called as matter? Okay, what are the conditions by which we can say that that particular given is thing is a matter? So the condition for something to be called as matter is that it should occupy space and have mass. So as we know that the definition for the matter was the that the definition for the matter was anything that has mass and can occupy space, or in other words we can say that they are having volume. Okay, they are having volume are matters. Okay, we have discussed these things in our previous classes. So the condition is that that particular substance, that particular something must be having a mass which we can measure out there, and volume. Okay, these two things is necessary for a substance or for a material to be called as a matter. Okay, let's move further. The next question here is asking, name two processes which provide the best evidence for the motion of particles in matter. Okay, we have to provide some evidences, or we have to provide some what we call it proof, in order to prove that why how we can say that the particles are in motion in a matter. Okay, so the two processes which shows that the particles in a matter are in motion are diffusion and the Brownian motion. Okay, diffusion and the Brownian motion. So what is diffusion? Diffusion is the process of motion of movement of particles from higher concentration to lower concentration. Okay, diffusion is the movement of particles from higher concentration region to lower concentration region. This is confirmed to us. Okay, and the Brownian motion is the motion of the particles when light rays are thrown on the suspension or the colloids. So there, what happens? The light rays gets deflected by the particles present in the solution, and hence what will happen, we can see that the particles are moving in that particular liquid, or in the solvent or the solution. Okay, so that type of motion is known as the Brownian motion. Okay, so these two consequences, or these two processes are the evidence, or are the proofs for the condition that the motion of the particles is present in the matter, that the matters are having, the particles which are contained in the matter are having motion, or they are in movement, regular movement there. Okay, next, which single term is used to describe which single term is used to describe the mixing of copper sulfate and water kept in beaker on its own? Okay, which single term is used to describe the mixing of copper sulfate? Copper sulfate means CuSO4. It is a type of component which is blue in color. Okay, and water kept in a beaker, on its own. So what happens when we take some copper sulfate which is blue in color in a beaker or in a container, and we pour some water in it. After that, or water has been taken before only in a container, and we add some copper sulfate here. So what will happen? Slowly we will see that the blue color of that copper sulfate is been spreaded out in the water container. Okay, the whole of the water will become slowly blue in color. So what is the process? What is going on here? Here what is happening? The particles of CuSO4, it is spreading out. It is spreading out in the water. Okay, it is spreading out in the water. So they are in actual, they are diffusing there. Okay, they are diffusing there. The particles of CuSO4 are diffusing in the water, and slowly the water's color will change into blue there. So here the diffusion process has been occurred out. The diffusion process is the process which is occurred out, and due to which we will see that the mixing of copper sulfate is taking place on its own in the water there. Okay, no requirement of any stirring or any other process is required there. The copper sulfate will itself get dissolved in the water there. Okay. Next, when sugar is dissolved in water, there is no increase in the volume. Which characteristic of matter is illustrated by this observation? If we are dissolving, see, sugar is solid, and if that solid sugar has been dissolved in water, then what must be happened out there? The water volume must be, if I am taking half liter, means 50 ml of water, sorry, if I am taking not half liter, if I am taking 50 ml of water and I am adding 1 gram or 2 gram of sugar there, then the volume of the solution which has been formed out, it must be higher than that of the 50 ml, because it is containing sugar there. But what happens on observation? We will see that the volume of the solution is 50 ml only. No increase or decrease in the solution's volume has been seen out there. So what is the reason here? The characteristics of matter. So the answer is, the characteristics of matter illustrated by this observation is that the particles of matter have spaces between them. What happened out there when the solution has been formed? The molecules of, or the particles of the sugar, the particles of the sugar, they gets in the spaces between spaces. Which spaces? Interstitial spaces. What do you understand by interstitial spaces? The spaces which are present between the particles of the water. Okay, the spaces which are present between the particles of water, that particular spaces are termed as interstitial spaces. The spaces which are present between the particles of any of the substances, that is termed as interstitial spaces. And here when we are dissolving sugar in water, there the particles of the sugar will get deposited, or will get in the interstitial spaces of the water there, and hence we will not observe any increase in the volume there. Okay, any increase in the volume of the solution there. Let's see the next question. Even 2 or 3 crystals of potassium permanganate can impart color to very large amount of water, to very large volume of water. Which characteristics of particle is of matter is illustrated by this observation? If I am taking very small amount of KMnO4, okay, this KMnO4, that is potassium permanganate, it is having a purplish color. Okay, it is having a purplish, or we call it as purple color. Okay, so that particular color, if I am taking very small amount of potassium permanganate also, then the very large amount of water, if I am taking 1 liter of water, then that amount of water will also get into change its color in the purplish color. And if I am taking 2 or 3 liters of water also, so very small amount of potassium permanganate can convert the color of that whole 2 or 3 liter of water. So what is the reason? What is the characteristic which has been shown out here? So the reason or the characteristic here is that in this observation, it is displayed that each crystal of potassium permanganate must be made up of millions of small particles. It means that the small crystals of potassium permanganate which we are taking out there, they are made up of many millions of small particles of potassium permanganate, which are combined together to form that particular crystals. And when we are dissolving this into when we are dissolving this into water, then what happens? This all particles gets their spaces in the interstitial spaces between the water molecules or the water particles, and hence what will happen? The whole of the water which is present, which we have taken, let's say it is 1 liter or it is 2 liter or 3 liter, the whole of the water will get colored out there. Okay, so hence we can say that the small crystals of potassium permanganate are imparting very large amount of particles there in very small space. Okay, in very small space, and hence we can say that the particles or the matter is very small. Next, when an incense stick, agarbatti, okay, we call it as agarbatti, okay. So when an incense stick is lighted in one corner of the room, its fragrance spreads in the whole room quickly. Which characteristics of the particle of matter is illustrated by this observation? So what happens when we do the puja and all these things? What happens? We used to burn the agarbatti or incense sticks there, but we are burning the incense stick at a particular place. But the fragrance of that incense stick, what will happen? It will spread throughout that particular room or throughout that particular hall. Everywhere we can smell that particular smell of the incense stick. So what is the property which has been illustrated? Okay, so here this illustration shows that the particles are constantly moving in all directions. Yes, it is true. The particles, if they are getting the proper space, okay, for their motion, for their movement, then what will happen? They will start to move. They will start to move, and they will move in all directions, all the places, all the directions where they are getting the space. They will move in all the part there. Okay, so hence the motion of the particles are in all direction. This particular characteristics is been illustrated here by the spreading of fragrance of agarbatti, which has been lighted at a corner of the room, but we can smell its fragrance from a very other end or from a very distant place of that in that room. Okay, next, a piece of chalk can be broken into smaller pieces by hammer. A piece of chalk can be broken into smaller particles by hammering, but a piece of iron cannot be broken into small particles by hammering. Which characteristics of the particles of matter is illustrated by this observation? Okay, what is the characteristics which has been observed here? As we can break easily the chalk with hammer, but we cannot break easily the iron substances, okay, by hammering. What is the reason here? So the answer here is that matter is made up of very small particles. Yes, it is true. They are made up of very small particles, and they are attached or they are attracted toward each other by the force of attraction, which we call as, that particular force is called as intermolecular or interparticular forces. Okay, so here that force of attraction has different values for different substances. That intermolecular force value is different for every different substances. If chalk is easily breaking, if chalk is easily breaking, then by hammering, then it is termed that it is having very low intermolecular force. The particles of the chalks are having very low intermolecular force between them. But the iron particles, the iron substances which we are taking, they are not getting broke by hammering. What is the reason? The reason is that the intermolecular forces between the particles of the iron is very high there, and on hammering also, on producing a large amount of impact or great force also there, they are not getting or they are not losing their intermolecular force there. Okay, or in other words, we can say that in order to break them, in order to separate them from each other, we require a great amount of force there. Okay, we require a very large amount of force there. By hammering or by using this small amount of forces, we cannot break the iron pieces there. Okay, so the difference, so the major difference here is that the intermolecular force, the larger the intermolecular force, the harder it will be to break that particular substance, and the lower the intermolecular force, the easier it will be to break that substance or to break the substance into pieces. Okay, let's see the next question. The next question here is, what is the scientific name of particle which make up matter? Okay, the scientific name, the proper scientific name or the technical name which is given to the matter, to the particles of the matter. So that particular name is atoms. We can scientifically term the particles as atoms or molecules, or we can term them as molecules. Okay, make these atoms or molecules only repeat themselves to form a matter, and these atoms and molecules are only combined with each other with intermolecular or interatomic forces in order to form a matter. Let's see the next question. The next question is asking here, name a process by which a drop of ink spreads in a beaker of water. Okay, name a process by which a drop of ink is spread in the beaker of water. So here you can see that I have made out an illustration for you. Okay, here you can see that I have taken three containers. Container number one, sorry, not three containers, I have taken a container, it is one container only, but the three conditions are there. One, when I have just added the ink drop. Second, when I have taken some time, I have taken this containers condition after an hour. Okay, when just added, this is first condition is when the ink drop is just added. Second, after an hour, my observation, this is the observation after an hour, and this is the observation after a day. Okay, this is the observation after a day. I am not steering it, or I am not effecting this particular after adding the oil drop there. Okay, I am not disturbing this container after just adding of that ink drop there. Okay, so what will happen? Slowly we will see that. Slowly we will see that the color of the at start when we are adding the drop of ink in this container, what will happen? At starting we will see that very slowly, very slowly, the color of the water is changing. Very slowly the color of the water is changing. But after an hour, we will see that the color of water has been changed out. Okay, it is changed out to a larger extent. And after a day, we will see that the whole of the water has been colored out in the form of the ink only. As we have taken blue ink, then the whole of the water is converted into blue, or we have taken the black ink, then the whole of the water is converted into black there. So here what is happened? Here the diffusion has been happened out. Here the diffusion has been happened out. The particles of the ink have diffused in the water there. Okay, they have diffused in the intermolecular or interstitial spaces of the water molecules, and hence slowly we will see that gradually the color of the water is changing after time. Okay, so that process which is occurring here, the change of color in water, it is the diffusion process. Let's see further. The next question is, what is the general name of rigid form of matter? What is the general name of rigid form of water? Fluid form of matter. Okay, first we have to understand what is rigid word. So rigid means do not change its shape. Do not change its shape. That particular property is known as rigidity, and the substance which do not changes their shape easily are called as rigid. Similarly, fluid, fluidity or fluid, that the substance can flow, the tendency to flow, the tendency to flow. That property is called as fluidity, and the substances which can flow, they are termed as fluids. Okay, so the general name for the matter that is rigid, it is solid. We know that the solids are rigid and they does not change their shape easily. They readily does not change their shape. Similarly, what are fluids? So the fluids are liquids and gases. Fluids are liquids and gases, because here liquids and gases can change their shape, and gases are not having a particular shape. We have studied this thing, but liquids can change their shape according to the container in which they are kept. Okay, in the container which they are stored, according to that container they changes their shape. So hence liquid and gases, as they both can flow also and they both can change their shape also, therefore they are fluid, while the solid, they does not change their shape, therefore they are rigid. Now, next question here is asking that out of solid, liquid and gases, which one has maximum movement of particle, maximum interparticle attraction, and minimum spaces between particles? These three things we have to answer out here. So let's answer this. The first answer question is that maximum movement of particle. So as we know that the spaces between the solid particle is very less, while the spaces for the liquid particle, it is larger than that of the solid, but it is lesser than that of the, lower than that of the gaseous. and the gases are having very large spaces between their particles. So the movement of particles here is directly proportional, or it is directly related to the spaces between the particles only. The matter that is having more spaces between their particles, they will move more. Okay, there will be maximum movement there, while the particles which are containing lesser spaces, they will be having minimum movement there. So the answer for the first question is gases. The gases have maximum movement of particles. Okay, the gases have the maximum movement of particles. The next question here is maximum interparticle attraction. What is this interparticle attraction? The force of attraction between the particles of the matter, that will be termed as interparticle attraction. Okay, that will be termed as interparticle attraction. So the solids are having the largest interparticle attraction. Why? Because they are very closely packed, they are very nearly packed with each other. You can see here no spaces is there. Okay, and if there is no spaces, so it means that there must be a very strong force between them, which are keeping them held together very closely. So hence the maximum interparticle attraction force is present in solids. The last question is asking that minimum spaces between the particles. So it is very obvious that if large interparticle space force is there present in the molecules in the between the particles of the solids, then the spaces there will be very less as comparison to that of the liquids and gases, and hence the minimum spaces will be present in the case of solids only. Okay, so hence the answer is gases have the maximum movement of particles, the solids have the maximum interparticle space or inter molecular space between them, that is attraction force, and they are also having lesser, very less space between the particles of them. Okay, let's move further and see the next question. So the next question is asking here, a substance has a definite volume, a substance has a definite volume and but do not have a definite shape. State whether that substance is solid, liquid or gas. A substance has definite volume. The volume of that particular substance is definite, it is fixed, but it does not have a definite shape. Then we have to identify that it is a solid or it is a liquid or it is a gas. So as I have told you before that the liquids are having the property that they have definite volume. They have definite volume, but they does not have any fixed shape. But they does not have any fixed shape. Similarly, solids have definite volume and fixed shape. While in case of gases, both are unfixed out there. No fixed volume is there and no fixed shape is there. So hence we can term that liquids are the correct answer for here. Liquids have the definite volume, but they does not have any definite shape. Okay, let's move further and see the next question. The next question here is, name the physical state of matter which can be easily compressed. Okay, which can be easily compressed. So first we have to understand what is compression. What is compression? So the process by which we can bring the particles more near to each other. The process or the suppressing. Do you understand by suppressing? To suppress something. To suppress something. किसी चीज को दबाना. Okay. So if we are suppressing something, if we are suppressing the particles, then what will happen? The spaces between the particles, the spaces between the atoms and molecule will decrease. So name the physical state of matter which can easily be compressed, easily. So if I am talking about solids, so what was the condition there? That the spaces between the particles of solid was very less. They were having very less spaces between their particles. It means that if I am going to compress solid, is it possible to compress solid more? As they are not having even more spaces between them, then what will happen? No change, no change in the no change in the spaces of the solid will be seen out there, because no space is available there in order to decrease their spaces. This particular phenomenon is also applicable to the liquids only. Okay, what will happen if you will start to compress the liquid particles there, then also there also not very large amount of space is present out there. So what will happen, they will also not get suppressed out there. Okay, they will also not get compressed out there, but the particles of gases were very much far away from each other. And if I am suppressing them, then what, compressing them, then what will happen, they will start to compress, they will start to compress. It means that this particular phenomena can be understood by the activity that if I'm having a room, if I'm sitting in a room, let us say I'm sitting in a room of 10 feet into 10 feet into 10 feet, means the length of the room, the height of the room, and the breadth of the room, the width of the room is 10 into 10 into 10 feet cube. Okay, so the volume present, the volume of gas which is present in this room will be 1000 feet cube only. Okay, the volume of the gas must be 1000 feet cube only. So here I can compress this amount of gas, this volume of gas can be easily compressed, and it can easily be contained in a 2 or 3 liter bottle. You have seen the 2-liter bottle of your cold drinks. Okay, so in that particular bottle, that 2-liter or 3-liter bottle, we can easily compress this much amount of 1000 feet cube air easily. So what is the reason behind this? The reason behind this is that the spaces between the particles of the gases is very large, so we can easily suppress them and can decrease the spaces between them without any resistance there. But while in case of solids and liquid, it is very hard. So hence the answer here, it will be gases can be easily compressed. Okay, the answer here, it will be gases can be easily compressed, and hence it is the state of matter that can be easily compressed out. Next, the question number 40. A substance has a definite shape as well as definite volume. Okay, a substance has a definite shape as well as definite volume. Which physical state is represented by this particular statement? So a substance, it is having definite shape and definite volume. I have discussed this thing in the question number 12 only. So what is it? It is nothing other than solid. Okay, because the particles of the solids are very close to each other and they are held together by very strong interparticle attraction force. So what will happen? The shape of the solids will not change readily. Also, the volume of the solid will also be fixed out there. So hence, the substance which is here, it is a solid. Okay, so the answer 14 is the question number answer. The answer for the question number 14 is solid is the substance that is having definite shape as well as definite volume. Next, question number 15. A substance has neither a fixed shape nor a fixed volume. State whether it is solid, a liquid, or a gas. So it is very obvious that if it is having no fixed shape or no fixed volume, it means that the particles of that particular substance must be very far away from each other. The interparticular force is very low there, and both these conditions are applicable to the matter of gas. Okay, to the state of matter gas. So hence our answer here for the question number 15 is gas is that particular substance that does not have any fixed volume or any fixed shape. Okay, so for particular session I have taken 15 of these questions for your S1 book. So copy these questions in your copy. Okay, write down all these questions in your copy, and in the next session I am going to discuss with you some of the more questions related to this chapter only from the S1 book. Like this only I will provide you all the answers for the S1 book, and if I am unable to provide it in video, then I will provide you with the PDF also. Okay, so thank you for attending this class. We will continue and meet in our next class. Thank you.